guys, welcome back to That One Time I Was Abducted by Aliens. My name's Jamie.
My name is Bree, and we're two sides of the coin.
All right, Bree, so what is our episode tonight about?
So tonight we interviewed Barry, and he is the lead singer and guitarist of Blue Alien Mystic.
Mm-hmm. The band definitely has really good vibes and a really good message. And I think once you hear this interview and you understand the story of where it came from, it might resonate with you a little bit deeper if you maybe listened to it before and was like, oh, that's not for me. Or maybe you're just tuning into the first time and this will be the first time you're listening. I think it's a really cool perspective to hear the backstory of how the band kind of came to what it is through his journey of, you know, space and aliens and shit.
I have to agree 100%. I think everyone should give it a listen. Try to feel how your heart kind of might resonate with this. Give the music a try. I think it helps to know a backstory of a band and where they're coming from when they write the music.
Or just anything creative, though. It's always nice, like, to see a painting and to understand the backstory of how that got painted. You know, people are always so curious about the whys of things. Mm-hmm. And I think it applies to all kind of creativity.
Yeah. And I definitely think that the message is where you want to be. Like, you want to listen to that kind of music that puts that kind of vibes out there.
Yeah. So, Bree, let's just jump right into the episode. We hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you in a bit when we get back.
Hey!
Thank you for coming on. We're so excited.
We're super excited, yeah.
It's been a long time in the making, huh?
My pleasure. Holy cow.
We wanted to start off with maybe you kind of introducing yourself to the listeners, who you are, and maybe after you can go into telling us about your music.
Cool. So, first of all, thank you guys for having me on. My name is Barry Mangione. I am lead singer, guitarist for Blue Alien Mystic, and among other things, a musician, a healthcare worker, a author, sort of used to be a podcaster, might bring that back, not sure. So been playing in various bands and doing solo stuff for many years, most of my life. And I had just done wrapped up with a band and that broke up, and I was like trying to do a solo project and it wasn't working out. And then I had this experience in a flotation tank. I don't know if either of you guys have tried flotation.
I have not tried it, but it's definitely on my list. I'm so incredibly fascinated by it. I've been looking about it a lot lately and trying to find out where the closest one is to us. But for people that aren't aware of it, can you explain what it is?
Yeah, so flotation, or like sensory deprivation, is basically you're in a tank or a tub, depending on, some of them have like sort of less claustrophobic options there. I prefer this like extra wide tank in the place that I go to. So it's about 850 pounds of Epsom salts in water. So it's basically you're weightless in the water and your body is supported. So you are just floating in space. And then the room is completely dark. There's no sound. And so the way the owner was explaining it to me when I talked to him was, you know, when you lose one sense, your other senses get heightened, right? Yeah. So when you go into a flotation experience there, you lose your sense of where your body is, you lose your sight, you basically lose your hearing because there's no sound going on, and you're pretty much just left with your mind. And so it's really like taking a psychedelic trip without taking any type of psychedelics, which I know, Jamie, I've heard you talk about. You're like, no drugs, no drugs, no drugs.
Yeah, no drugs, yeah.
So this would be like perfect for you.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, so I did that, and I was just looking back in some like this little like diary app that I have and some notes that I take, and that was May of 2016. And so as part of this, that's when I was like figuring out what to do with music and sort of gathering musicians to have a band to back me up. And I had this contact experience in this tank where I was just floating there, and you know, you just kind of after a while sort of you start to just like wiggle around a little bit and get used to it, and then at some point you just sort of like settle in and everything relaxes, and then these visions just kind of come to you. And I started having this experience with a small blue alien, but he was He was definitely a masculine energy to him, but he was also dressed in this shamanic garb. So it kind of reminded me of like Rafiki from Lion King. He had this like staff with him. So it was this interesting combination of like alien intelligence, but this like earthly ancestral kind of wisdom. And, you know, you think about all the ancient aliens and all that stuff. It just sort of made sense. And so this experience I had, he was communicating with me, and there was just this feeling of sort of just wisdom and light coming from him. And I was struggling with what to do with the music. And some of the messages that he put through were, you need to be having fun. And this was not just with me. This is just like with everyone. If you're not having fun doing it, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, then there's not much point to it. And it wasn't for me at the time. It was like something that I should have loved, but I wasn't really, because it was so much work involved to it and figuring things out. And he like put his hand on my chest. He was probably it seemed like he changed size in this experience, but if I had to estimate, it'd be like maybe a 3 or 4 foot tall being. And he kind of like put a hand on my chest, and then he put this like blue seed into where my throat chakra would be.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And then it didn't happen at the time, but he sent this sort of image into my mind of that seed sort of growing. And you know that the tree of life image in I think it's in like yoga.
Yeah.
They have it a lot. Yeah. So imagine that like stemming from your throat chakra, and like the tree itself like growing up into your head, and then like roots growing down into your body.
Wow.
And he said, so I'm planting this, and you water it with, it's great that I took notes on this. I can look back at this now. He said, and you water it with fun, smiles, laughter, and joy.
Wow.
And he said, you know, as long as you take care of this and nurture this, it will grow and it will sustain you. But he likened it to a tree, and that also a tree gives off oxygen, so that it's also giving you life. But if you grow it and you put that energy out there, then that will also spread outside of you and give oxygen to the world in the form of like creativity and light and love.
Yes.
So, yeah. And,
wow.
And so I came out of that, and I was just kind of like you guys. I was like, whoa, process that. And then I thought, you know what, the music and the messages that I was trying to put out about my own journey and my like hitting bottom and recovering and coming through all that, it really wasn't about me. So I started to think about it and think that really just naming this music after me was just kind of like not the real path and not the real message. So I decided to make it about this overall message and this being, and created the band of Blue Alien Mystic, and this message of sort of like peace and, well, it's like I say in one of the images that we use, life, love, music, and peace. And that's basically the mission of the band, is to spread that out there through music that rocks. And things have been rolling. That had that float in May of 2016, and we've been moving forward gradually, but just gaining some momentum and building a following, and all with music that is geared toward spreading some positivity out there and like trying to make you move and think at the same time.
That is excellent. That's exactly what we need as well. So that's a beautiful message that you're putting out.
Thanks. Yeah, and that was about the time, and when I was looking at that, then I started to get back into, I remember hearing about Dr. Greer on Joe Rogan's podcast back when he had him on there. That was a while ago. And then the more I started thinking about my experience in the tank, and I had just sort of chalked it up to just a kind of a vision that I had. I didn't think of it as a contact experience at the time. But then when I started getting back into Greer's work, and then watching Serious Disclosure, and then following the progress, leading up to Unacknowledged. And he started talking about consciousness and meditation and the whole CE5 thing, and how it's like, yeah, they're traveling through consciousness and transdimensionally. And I'm like, holy crap. Yeah, that was totally a contact experience that I had.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it was like a jaw-dropping moment for me when he talked about, like, okay, so if they're 1,000 light years away and they're traveling at the speed of light, then it's still going to take them, 1,000 years to just like say hi. And then us 1,000 years to say back, like, yeah, hey, how you doing? So it's like they have to be going non-locally. And yeah, that's when I just decided to make it kind of all-encompassing, this music and I don't really consider myself like disclosure kind of guy, but yeah, I do try to incorporate elements of that in there too.
Oh, wow.
Have you had any other experiences other than the one you've had inside the float tank? Like, have you ever done like any night watches or anything like that?
I've tried with not much success. The closest thing that I can say, actually, okay, so it was a few months ago. I was driving between clients for my day job, and I saw, it's so hard to like confirm when you see something in the sky, because there's just so many doubts in your head. It's like, was that airplanes, or was that some kind of craft? But the way it happened, I'm watching it, and it looked like two silvery white pill-shaped objects in the sky, sort of like racing with each other.
Wow.
That was only a few months ago. But other than that, I've had some like brushes with some other entities in the float tank since then. I try to go, but it's not cheap. So I try to go back, once a month, once every other month, but nothing to the magnitude of that one experience that I had.
So how would you say it made you feel after? Like the second that you got out of the tank, was it immediately life-changing and something you had to really think about? I know you said that you kind of brushed it aside as kind of like this vision, and it didn't really fully hit you till later that it was a contact experience. But overall, how would you say you felt right after?
So even though I didn't really fully acknowledge it as a contact experience right in that moment, I knew that it was something deeply spiritual that came from somewhere outside of me. So I felt like this was something that was given to me that I had to then carry forward. Like I was given, kind of a torch to carry, to bring out into the world. And so I was sort of given a mission.
Absolutely. 100%. Did you talk to your family about it after?
Yeah, well, I talked to my wife about it all, which, by the way, she loves the show.
Oh, awesome.
Good, we're excited.
I can talk to her pretty much about anything, which is awesome. And I've talked to some of my family. Some of them are like, no, don't talk to us about things like that. I'm sure there's more than a few people listening who can identify with that.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm totally comfortable talking with my wife and with certain members of the family. But and I've talked about it before with some friends who are like on that same path. But as you guys know, there's people you can talk to and people who are like, nope, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Did you have any other prior beliefs or come from any type of religious background that maybe that was a pushback from or really kind of shook your beliefs?
Oh God, I've been a spiritual seeker for most of my life, so it wasn't really a pushback because of that. Like I was just watching what's that documentary, Patient 17? Have you guys seen that?
Yeah.
I was just watching that, and so it wasn't anything like that where that guy was like where he was like, no, if this turns out to be not of this world, then it totally shakes my religious belief. No, I'm not like that at all. I grew up Catholic, and then I was atheist for a while, and then I got back into it, and now I consider myself a devout agnostic. So like What I mean by that is like, I'm absolutely certain that there is something greater than all of us, but it's also inside of us and as part of us, and we're a part of it. But I'm also absolutely certain that I don't know what the hell it is, and I don't know it, and that it, or that it's been captured in a book, or that it can be captured in a book. And that's like going along with that. I had that kind of confirmed for me in this experience, and also in another actual psychedelic experience I had on shrooms like a while back, where it was like, well, so when I met this being, people have asked me like, oh, so what was the alien's name? Like, that's the thing. It's like with him and with another sort of like experience I had on psychedelics, it was like the general communication was, why do you humans feel the need to name everything?
Yes.
And I was like, what? And it's like, you're here, right? You're communicating with me? I'm like, yeah. So that's it.
Yeah.
That's like, we're here. We're communicating through consciousness. So you recognize me, I recognize you. Why do you need to like slap a label on everything?
Absolutely.
So I was like, wow, okay. Yeah. And I guess that kind of goes along with the whole thing about oneness.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like all these labels that we put on things just create separation and separateness.
They do, yeah. I also think higher on the density scale, everything's so telepathic, it's just an understanding. And so you lose the need to construct things and words and trying to get a point across. It's just a flat knowing. A knowing and communication between the two. Those little details are not important.
That's the key word, is knowing. Mm-hmm. It's just that sort of like that intuition knowing thing. And you don't really need to know a name or to have a name for something to be able to communicate with it. If I can ask you guys something, so you'd mentioned density, and I've heard you talk about that before, but I'm not like totally clear on what that's referring to. As far as can you like explain that briefly?
Yeah. So density, in my opinion, would kind of be a level of consciousness. And this absolutely has to do with the being that you met, how you didn't have to use those types of words. It was, like we were saying, just a knowing. So that's way higher on the density scale. So most of us are in third density. So we're
also like a third dimension. You can think about that word kind of swapping out with each other.
Okay.
So,
okay. I hear because I hear density, and it's like, okay. I think like lighter, like a lower density would be like more evolved, but that's not the case here.
The more of the separation between self and ego.
Right.
So, the more denser you are, the definitely more ego-based you are. And so higher on the density scale, you lose that ego body and you move more towards oneness. And so you're transcending where we are now into a much lighter space, and it all being connected.
Gotcha.
And really just kind of higher perspectives of love and acceptance, really. It's kind of the higher beings that people communicate with. That's all that they care about, and that's the only message that they're trying to convey is just love. Love is all that there is. There is no self as far as how we see it. Everything's, like me, and we identify that way. Higher on the density scale, you lose that. You understand that everything's connected, you're all connected, and you live your life more in a oneness type of perspective.
Yeah, it's not, when you get on the higher density scale, it's not about you as an individual, it's about what you are contributing to that higher purpose.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that makes sense with not having to have, a name, because they don't, like when we describe things to each other, we use words and we say things to try to kind of push our message to someone else and make someone understand something based off of how we feel. That's kind of how we're getting our point across, is, using a mixture of words to push that image on something or onto someone else. And so higher on the density scale, you're not really using those types of words because it's just a clear communication between each other. And also because those types of things don't exist anymore. Like the hate or the trying to manipulate as far as conversations or what you're trying to convey to someone else.
So higher density would correlate with higher vibration.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
100%.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So I know you said that your wife is a pastor.
Yeah.
So how does that kind of dynamic really work with your guys' relationship, as you being someone who believes in, quote unquote aliens? Is that something that because you said you talk to your wife about this kind of stuff, is that something that she takes in and she just kind of like laughs at, or something that she really considers, or is it a big conflict for her with her religion?
No, my wife is the coolest human being on the planet as far as I'm concerned. She's totally awesome. When we first met, like on our first date, I said exactly what I just said to you guys about being a devout agnostic, and she was like, "Wow, that I think that kind of sums it up," because she's of the mindset that the real spirit of God really can't be captured in a book, and that it's really meant to be lived out there, and it's not about just like going to church and reading through the passages and just standing there and reciting whatever. It's about actually being out there in the world and being of service to whatever you want to call it, God or a higher power or the universe, and just spreading love and positivity. No, she has no problem with she doesn't follow dogma, really.
Yeah.
That's absolutely amazing to me, because a lot of people do follow religion more in a sense of you do this, you do that, and opposed to really living your life in that sense of love and being connected to something else. I think people lose that.
Yeah.
They don't focus on that anymore, and that's what kind of deters from the original message.
Well, yeah, and I think that's why, churches in general are failing, at least in America. But she's one of the few who's actually growing and bringing people in, because she has a good message out there. And it's like, yeah, I don't consider myself real Christian. I believe in some of the principles there, but I don't consider myself a real hardcore Christian. But yet I'm still there every morning on Sunday because she has a really good message to deliver, and when she gives a sermon, it's universally applicable. She may start with the scripture reading, but she's giving you something that you can take with you. And I think that's what we really need today from our spiritual leaders, is something that we can actually use today, and something that we can use to make the world better, rather than somebody standing up in front of us and being like, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad, stop doing that, stop doing that.
So I'm going to ask this question because I know that Not Your Pastor's podcast is going to get mad at me if I don't ask you this.
Okay.
But has your wife ever had a sermon about aliens?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not to the best of my knowledge. We've been together for going on 6 years now, and I don't remember. She talked about clouds one time, but never aliens.
Okay, but never aliens. All right.
Maybe she and I could go on that podcast as a tag team guests.
I know that'd be great. I'd love that. I'm sure they would love that too.
I did check those guys out, so if you guys are listening, good job.
Awesome.
No, they always listen. Don't worry.
So I have a question for you, because I know that this has happened to you, but do you think there is another reason why contact seems to happen individually, opposed to just a mass landing, and to the general public it's individualized?
Boy, that's a good question. I wonder that. I think my gut would tell me that it's because it's something that you wrestle with. And so, and I think because if it's like a group thing, you mean if, something like Phoenix Lights or something like that on a grander scale?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think if it's that, then it gets sort of like sensationalized, and it becomes more, I don't know, superficial, or people pick it apart. And I think, I don't know, I'm just going off, my own intuition here. But I think when it's an individual thing, then you take it on sort of as more of a mission, and you find more meaning in it. And maybe that's why people are contacted individually rather than, en masse like that, because it's supposed to be, or maybe like this, like happened to me. Maybe it's planting seeds, for people to go out into the world and do things and spread the word.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely. I think if it just happened, kind of globally, that people wouldn't have that sort of interaction, and so that they wouldn't really get the full grasp of it. And maybe because it's happening individually, you have your own full experience and your own full understanding of what it means to you.
Yeah, I think it's a journey. I was just struggling with this the other day, because I was looking at just some of we live in some crazy times, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just some of the stuff that's going on in the world. It's like, what the hell is going on? And I what was I posting about? Something about, because I had to deal with some nonsense with my health insurance company. And, you put something out there, and then it's like the hordes come and just attack. It's like my left-wing friends are saying this, right-wing friends are saying that, and they're back and forth. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, I said to my wife, I'm like, why don't people don't people get it that that we should be working together, and that we should be, we're here to help each other, and why don't people get this oneness? And then I think about my own personal journey and how I was in that mindset at one time. I was part of that, watch network TV all the time and just, sit through commercials and get the programming and the brainwashing going through. And I think about, what? I had to take a personal journey to get here, and that was something that I had to do for myself, and I had to take that on. And I think it follows the same path. It's like, I want more people to be evolved, but you can't just give it to them. It's one of those things you can't just give to somebody. They have to get there, get themselves there. So I think that goes kind of hand in hand with what we're saying about the individual experiences. It's like, if the aliens just came down and was like, bam, here we are, then it's just, it's not a process. Then it's shock.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So speaking of personalized experiences, then, do you know if your family has any history of having experiences?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I'm trying to think back with my own family. I mean, the only thing that I can say is that I felt like an alien in my family growing up, which probably a lot of people who are listening to this can identify.
Absolutely.
Maybe even you guys to a degree. It's like I grew up in northeastern Pennsylvania, outside the Pocono areas, and it's essentially red state area there, and that's totally not me. And I was always interested in sci-fi, in aliens, in the arts and all that stuff. And it was just like, when people go back and meet my family, they're like, "Are you sure? I mean, if you didn't look like them, I wouldn't believe it." But other than me feeling like an alien, for my whole life, no, as far as I know.
A little bit of a starseed experience.
I think so. Yeah.
Definitely.
Does your family have any military background, or any background in science or aerospace or anything like that?
I come from, my dad was drafted into Korea. But he got out as soon as he could. And no, they were, mom was, a homemaker, and dad was a truck driver and then ran a trucking business. There was no, we had no secret military contacts or anything like that. We weren't on any government radar. If that's what you're
So definitely a starseed experience then. Definitely. So my next question for you, because this has a lot to do with contact being individual. You mentioned how it's really a journey, that it can't be handed to you. Do you think that contact definitely happens on a personal level when you shift your awareness and you become in a higher frequency and you expand your consciousness, so it creates a space for them to even interact with you? kind of like you're meeting them halfway. You do your part, and especially how you kind of went into this sensory deprivation and you put yourself in that different state, that kind of gave space for him to come through to you, because you lost all of that kind of ego garbage and monkey mind that we deal with every day. Is that something that you've kind of maybe grown to believe, is that that's definitely a way that contact happens, is when you're shifting your consciousness and your awareness?
Oh, totally. And one thing that I've been working on a lot recently is trying to tune in more with the intent of just listening, and like one revelation that I had recently was, and I don't know about your personal beliefs in God in quotation marks there, but whatever, I mean, we all like pray to universe or God or whoever, but it's like I had this revelation where I was like, well, I got to stop telling God what to do because it's like, okay, I need, just use money as an example. It's like, yeah, well, I'm really struggling here and I got, bills come. So I'm praying, that I get this much. And that's like, imagine it's like God's a person. It's just like you telling this other person, yeah, I need you to do this for me, like right now. And no, that's like not how the whole higher vibration, higher power thing works. It's like you put yourself in a state of stillness and you listen. And then that's how, as you're saying, like synchronicity happens. And that's when you start to see these little miracles happen in your life. And so, yeah, I totally think it's when you start, call it ascending, to some higher vibrational levels and some higher planes of consciousness and some elevated thinking per se, that we start opening ourselves up more to these experiences. So yeah, I would agree with you there. It's for me, it's like really about tuning in and listening, and again, like you said, shutting off that monkey mind and just being open. It's the same thing with writing music. I used to, when I first started, learning the instrument and learning writing and all that stuff, I used to have this ego thinking, wow, look what I just wrote. Look at this thing that I just created. And now it's more like, I just consider myself a channel. I consider myself a conduit. And when I'm writing, it's not like me, like building something out of blocks. I'm really just kind of like tuning in and just listening. All right, what's going to come to me? And it's a process of waiting and listening. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
And have you realized ever since doing that, instead of like trying so hard and just letting it come through you, does it come easier now?
Creativity comes way easier to me now, and and it's like also a path of acceptance as well, because it's sometimes you want something right away, but it wasn't meant to come right away, but you don't know that right in the moment.
Yeah.
So like, for instance, one of the songs on the EP that we just released, it's called Love in Space and Time.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, thanks. So here's an example with that, right? So I wrote the music for that, oh my God, before I met my wife. So this is probably like 7-8 years ago. And when I wrote that, I was going through this like horrific breakup of a really just toxic relationship. And the lyrics that I wrote for that were, I'm telling you, like Morrissey would have listened to this to cheer up. I mean, it was like that. It was so utterly depressing, so like codependent and needy, and like can't live without you kind of stuff. But I loved the music in that, and so I had that floating around in my head all this time. And so here's like a seed. Okay, so that seed was planted. And then not fast forward, but like 7-8 years later, I decide, you know what, I'm going to reclaim this song because it was so negative and it was such a bad place that I was in. And I want to turn this around and be positive. So I just set this intention that I'm going to turn this into a love song for my wife now. And I just listened, waited, and bam, it came it came in. So sometimes it could take a process of years, but sometimes you just have to like put the work out there and put the intention out there and then be tuned in and listen. And it's just so hard to have patience when it doesn't come right away.
That's true. It almost seems like you wrote it into existence as far as how you feel with your wife now.
Yeah.
Like you embodied that.
And so that's another interesting thing when we're talking about like time. It's so amazing how we're on like music and we're talking about just time and space and as well. Have you guys heard of John Perkins?
No.
Okay, so John Perkins is a author. He wrote the one that I found him on was Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and that was back when I was really in a dark time, and I filed for divorce and bankruptcy in the same year, and was like just angry at the world. And here's this guy talking about how he used to work for World Bank, and he would go into third world countries and set up like companies in these countries. And basically just like kind of like legally with corporate structure kind of enslave people into sweatshops and enslave them with debt. Basically just use the U.S. government as, just what's the word I'm looking for? Subsidizing the company's profits. Anyone out there who's like into the whole conspiracy stuff and, government shadow companies and all this stuff and government connection between corporate structure, you need to check that out because it's actually from a guy who did this kind of stuff. But the other flip side of that is he got so disgusted with himself and he just couldn't live with himself so hard that he changed his life to work with indigenous tribes in the Amazon.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he, started bringing people down to shamans for ayahuasca retreats and working with rainforest indigenous peoples there. And so I'm reading another book of his, which came actually before that one that I told you about, and it's called The World Is As You Dream It. And so he's talking about how this tribe, the Shuar, don't see time as we do in the North. And they see all things happening at the same time. Like the past is happening just in a different plane as the present. The future is happening at the same time, just in a different plane as the present. So I'm thinking about and relating this all back to that song. It was like, okay, so that's like thinking like I was writing the music for that and those lyrics at the time, but somehow in another time space dimension. Somehow maybe I had some awareness of years into the future where I would be with this, amazing woman, not this toxic one that I just left. And somehow those realities merged later on.
I absolutely believe that. I think everything's happening now.
Yeah, Bree's always said that. She's like, time is not real.
Yeah. And that's definitely a message that's also passed down from higher beings, is that time is completely different than the way that we perceive it here in the third dimension. Yeah. So it makes absolute sense to me.
Yeah, and going along with the whole thing about energy and just receiving signals and being more in tune, I came across that book at an indie bookstore up in Vermont, and I was in there and I was just trying to practice some of those listening skills, and this book just kind of called to me. And then it's like, you ever been in one of those situations where you're like maybe in a bookstore and you just kind of like listen to your gut or your intuition and it just pulls you someplace?
Absolutely.
And I'm like, okay, this book is telling me I have to have it.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And it's amazing. Same time I'm reading that, I'm also reading We the Arcturians. You guys heard of that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like I'm like shuffling back and forth between those two and just like marveling at the similarities between the Arcturians and the rainforest shamans.
It's very interesting too, since the being that you encountered was blue, and
exactly.
Also it displaying an imagery to you of the tree of life symbol.
Yeah,
Arcturians are very much about symbolism, and it's less about words communicating. It's using that sacred geometry to convey their message. So I wonder if you were absolutely meeting with an Arcturian guide, or maybe yourself?
I wonder, yeah, I started doing some more research because I didn't know anything about Arcturians or that when I had this experience. I kind of found that out later. And so I'm still kind of trying to determine, are we talking about Arcturian, Syrian? I'm not sure, could go either way. Something tells me maybe Arcturians is more likely, but I don't know.
Yeah, who really knows? It just sounds like a lot of it to me, just sense of the symbolism part. I also wanted to ask you, what inspired your song Save Yourself?
Ooh, haha, okay. So that was actually, you checking the lyrics on that one?
It just rang. It definitely rang a bell to me.
I'm so glad to hear that because I was worried that wouldn't ring a bell with anybody. Okay, there's another one. It's interesting. There's another one that also came from that toxic relationship place, and I changed the lyrics on it.
Wow.
And it was originally like "Save Yourself," and the message was to this other person who just totally screwed with my mind and my heart and my soul. It was like, you know what, you're on your own, save yourself now. I'm not going to be your, emotional punching bag anymore. And it was another case of, okay, really love this music, don't want to throw this song away. All right, let's rewrite this. And then I had this mushroom trip that I referenced earlier. And I decided to just sort of make the song about that. And so the verses are kind of the stream of consciousness thing from that, where it says, make up stories as you go and talk to the trees. And so what I'm talking about there is actual conversations that I had with trees while I was on shrooms there. And it was, again, similar thing. It was like this emotional knowing kind of contact without any exchange of naming anything or like labeling anything. And then, but the chorus is really about, so it's like, yeah, don't go fighting wars you never lost. And it's like, how many of us play stories in our head of, things we wish we'd done, or things we wanted to do, or like something we really wish we had said to somebody in a moment. And so it was this idea of just be your own savior and let go of all that crap, and just, again, be in the moment, and just don't go fighting wars that never even happened or that never will happen.
I love that message because even just the way that you labeled it as in savior self, opposed to like, obviously, yes, it's save yourself, but also save yourself. So there's definitely this savior complex, I think, that we have as a society, in which we're always looking for something to come down and just make everything better for us. And it's kind of like standing in your own power and knowing that you also have the right to make that happen.
Well, it's that, yeah. And that's also kind of what I was referring to as well, because I was waiting for that cavalry to come and save you, whether it's, a relationship or whether it's money or whatever. And again, in doing that, you're putting that intention out there into the world that you are not enough.
Yes.
And that somehow salvation or somehow the answer to all your problems has to come from outside of you, because you can't possibly do it yourself. And when you're putting that energy out there into the world, you're just attracting more ick to you, and you're just attracting more dysfunction. And it's hard. It's hard. I don't want to like come off sounding like I've got this. I still work on it every single day, but that's something that I know, and that's something that I've experienced, is that like when you're putting the energy out there of I'm not enough, so God, universe, somebody, please come save me. And as long as you live in that space, you're going to attract more of that to you.
I completely agree. I have the exact same understanding, and yes, it's something you work on every day. We're never going to be perfect, but that's definitely, in my opinion, what consciousness is all about, is that greater understanding. And just understanding that, you can work more towards that. And you're more aware of when you're doing something or you're putting yourself through hell when you don't need to. And it's knowing that there's that choice, and there's also knowing that you have that power, that you're a part of universe, God, source, whatever you want to call it. You are a part of it. So you also have a lot of that same power, if not all of the same power.
It's like my wife says, because you said the word perfect, she'll say it's not about perfection, it's about connection.
Yes, agree. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're always striving for perfection and always feeling like we're just never going to get there or we're so far. And yeah, we end up tearing ourselves down more. Absolutely. I love that message. So just to kind of close out as far as everything that you've experienced and what you're growing towards now, do you think that any of your experiences and where it's led you was planned or, definitely for a higher purpose?
So it's like hard to say anything like that without like sort of like opening the door for ego to come in.
Right. I know. It's difficult.
Yeah. And it's like, I know, Grant Cameron, has that whole thing with the five Messiah.
Yes.
It's like all these ego maniacs. I'm like, dude, look at you. I'm like, come on. I'm like, you're putting yourself out there. You're kind of but like, I think the key thing to think about is balance. It's like, yeah. So even if you feel like you've been given this, this message, this mission to carry something out into the world, I think what is helpful to remember is like I kind of talked about with writing music. It's like you're not the total creator of what's going out there, and you're a conduit, you're a channel, you're a messenger, and it's the universe's hands working through you. So I think there is a plan somewhere in there, but when you start to think that you know it, I think that's when you get in trouble, and that's when you start to think that you're in control, and it's like, it's sort of like when you're at the beach and you like walk out a little bit far and you get distracted, you turn your back and somebody's like, hey, calls your name, and next thing you know, a wave just comes and knocks your ass down under the water.
Yeah.
It's like that's the universe will just do that to you every once in a while just to put you in your place. It's like that's the universe just smacking you upside the head and being like, no, I'm bigger than you.
Keeping you on your toes.
Yeah, keeping you on your toes. Exactly. And it's like, it's the whole balance thing. You just have to look at the whole. Another thing that's helped really ground me and give me some perspective is, have you guys heard of the Kabbalion? Yeah. Oh my God, what a book. If anybody out there hasn't read that, you totally have to read it. That was another one that like called to me in a bookstore. I was looking for some UFO stuff, and it was like, no. The energy of this book was like, no, you got to read this. So that, like, on a daily basis helps keep me grounded and helps me just see the big picture.
It's beautiful.
So if you had to like give a soundbite overall when you're talking about like your experience or like the theories that you have going forward, like what would you say would be like your soundbite of like what you've gotten from all this?
Oh boy, first of all, I'm terrible with that stuff. It's like I'm so bad with like, okay, give me elevator pitch. Like people would, tell me like when I used to do podcasts or like, for author stuff, it's like, all right, give me the quick 15-second pitch. I'm like, I just freeze. So great. Thanks a lot.
I know, you're welcome.
I think if I had to put it all down, I think the overall message, whether it's aliens communicating with us or it's us connecting with the universe, is we're here to promote life, love, music, and peace. And that's my mission here. And that's why I'm here. And I think if we all focus on that a little more, then we'll all be better.
Absolutely.
That was a perfect soundbite. What are you talking about? You're so good at it.
Just like, you don't know. I just sat here and was just like sort of like prayer hands, just like channeling stuff and like going, don't mess it up. All
right, so why don't you plug yourself to the audience, tell everyone where they can find you, where they can download your music, see your music videos and stuff like that.
Sure. So if you just search Blue Alien Mystic on any social media, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, You can go to bluealienmystic.com. You can find both of our albums on iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon. We're on Bandcamp. So anywhere you download or stream your music, you can find us. Blue Alien Mystic. We are the only Blue Alien Mystic out there in the world. So your search results will be very slim, and you should come up with us right away. Please give us some likes. We're working on booking some more shows. We're on the East Coast, and if you're out in the New York, Connecticut, Jersey area, come see us, and we'd love to have you over. And just life, love, music, and peace.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will end up coming to listen to your music that really resonate with the message that you've said here today.
Yeah.
I definitely do. It's been such a pleasure. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. We're so glad that we made this work. You were the first person that ever even gave us a shout out or, put it out there on the internet that, that you enjoyed our message. And
we appreciate that so much.
I still remember the feeling of when Jamie sent that to me, and I was just so overwhelmed with happiness because it felt like awesome. Someone kind of, resonates with this.
Isn't that a great thing?
It's a great thing.
It is. And it's hard for Bree because Bree truly is like the shyest person in the world and like doesn't like to talk or like make her comments known or anything. So I think it was a big step for her to see that, oh my God, we're not just crazy people, that people actually might be into what we're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually those people who are really the ones who should share their light.
Absolutely. I tell her that all the time.
And I'm sure that's not the first time you've heard that. So I can tell you it was equally exciting for me to like hear back from you guys and to make that kind of connection. So I want to, I give you guys shout outs whenever I can, and I want to support you guys and help you guys get out there and spread what you're doing.
Absolutely, and we're so appreciative for it, honestly.
We really are.
And hopefully we could do this again soon, that we can have more talks like this and more interviews where we can kind of pick your brain, because I think that there's just so much in there that we can't get in like an hour episode that we'll definitely want to talk more.
Yes.
Totally.
Especially since I think we're on the same resident level here. I agree with everything that you've said today. So it's been an absolute pleasure. And we very much appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Barry. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Soon.
You too.
As well.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So that was a really awesome interview.
Bree.
I'm on to it.
Bree.
What's up, boo?
How was that interview for you?
I thought that was awesome. That's the kind of level I'm absolutely
like you're trying to be on?
Yeah.
I want to apologize, first and foremost, that during recording this, I was horribly sick.
She was.
I had a fever of like 104. I was probably dying. And I was here slumming it, trying to not puke, cough, or die anywhere near any of the equipment or on Bree. So if I sound a little bit better after that, that's I'm not so sick now. So you guys probably definitely heard the worst of it when I was in the last episode that we released.
Probably.
Where I was talking about all sorts of crazy things in my fever dream.
Yeah. But I knew that was going to be an interview that I would be 100% on board with.
Yeah, and the reason I'm saying I was sick because I did not want to miss it. We put it off for so long, and all of our schedules finally just like met up, and we were able to do this really great interview. And we wanted to talk forever. We didn't want to get off the phone. That's why this is going to be such a long episode.
It is. I love everything that he says, and I think that he is a prime example of the kind of contact that I speak about and that I would like to raise awareness for. He's the kind of prime example for what I think can happen to everybody, and I hope that more people can kind of tune into his message and get aligned with the whole meaning behind it, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I want to thank him again for coming on.
Absolutely, thank you so much.
And we hope to get on again. I hope that you guys can check out his music and also kind of tune into the frequencies that he's trying to put out there into the world.
Absolutely. So before we wrap up tonight's episode, we're not going to be doing a Factor Sci-Fi or a conscious quote, but we do want to definitely give some shout outs because we love shouting bitches out. So per usual, right off the top, I'm going to say number one go-to shout out, Brian Jackson.
Love you, boo.
Brian Jackson, actually, you've been like quiet and in the dark for a few weeks and we're pretty upset about it. We haven't gotten any DMs from you really. You aren't on our lives. And honestly, like, we talk about it over dinner. I just want to let you know that we have somebody who's a listener and they were at dinner with us tonight and they were really upset because you haven't been around. They asked where Brian Jackson was. And we had to say, we don't know. He's been gone. He's disappeared. Gone. So I just want to let you know that you have a following and they want to know where you are.
They do.
Since we're talking about Brian Jackson, shout out to
Two Schmucks and a Mic.
Two Schmucks and a Mic.
Two Schmucks, no fucks.
Two Schmucks, no fucks. Per usual, we love you.
And Covert Nerd, we love you always. You have a great podcast and we love your peace of mind.
And your 800 children.
Weather Traditions, you're a doll. And also a new person, actually, Destiny from Space. She left us a really great comment. And
why don't you read it?
Okay, she said, I just discovered your podcast today, and I just wanted to say that I love you guys, and I wish we were friends. Thank you so much for the new Aura episode. I've always been interested in the Indigo Children, but because of you, I found that I'm also a Starseed Lightworker. I've always thought that I was just too empathetic for my own good, but now it totally makes sense. You have a new listener.
That's so sweet. First of all, we love you. Thank you for listening. We're so excited that you got real information from one of our podcasts. That means a lot to us. We we strive to be a little bit educational, guys.
Sometimes, yeah. And Avracco, which is AVRACCO, he or she said thank you for everything we do.
You're welcome.
And we definitely appreciate that. Raya, we love you, boo.
Raya, we love you. You're awesome.
And for the one person that was Detour Down for What, that commented, quote, believers aren't the same as, quote, knowers. You can believe any stupid shit you please. Knowing takes work.
Bree's got some beef with you, though.
No, I 100% agree with everything you said.
But your approach is a little aggressive, and let's bring it down a notch.
I commented exactly. That's why we stated the two as two different things. So we welcome believers. We welcome knowers. We welcome thinkers. We welcome ponders.
But we also welcome non-believers.
Yes,
we have to
welcome ponders. That's what I'm saying. So we welcome all of it. So,
but don't be so negative. Like, you could have said that in a nicer way, and we would have been fine.
I'm gonna take it as a lovely comment.
I would take it. When I read it, I was like, oh, this is aggressive, and Bree's not gonna like this.
I was like, thank you, boo.
And Bree was like, all right, thank y'all.
No, I'm just saying we welcome all types of peoples. Thank you guys so much.
Shout out to Nate.
Love you.
On some real shit though, we do love you. You did the nicest shout out for us and you were so sweet. I really felt your used car salesman vibes when you were selling us and I was into it. Thank you. Okay, so that's our shout outs, guys. Shoot us a DM on Instagram at That One Time I Was Abducted. Follow us. Hit us up on our email
at thatonetimeIwasabducted@gmail.com. And thanks again, guys. We love you. Good night.
Wasn't easy before I met you. Nothing seemed to work out right. You showed me how all the broken pieces fit together. You helped me make sense of my life. You give me the reason. You give me the rhyme. You give me all that I need. Love and space and time.
edibles.
I'm down. Was that
Eat
recording?
more? And I said, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah.
I said, hey, what's going on?
With those
And I
edibles.
try.
Yeah, I don't know. Try. Eat a
It's
french
so
fry.
And I get real high.
Sometimes
What's going on? It's a boy.
we had a baby its way. Welcome to that one time I was abducted by aliens.
I'm too fidgety. Give me a sec. I wasn't prepared.
What's going on?
And I said,
Hey, yeah, yeah.
hey.
I said, hey, what's up, texting me?
It's Nate.
And I said, Nate. Welcome to that one time I was abducted by aliens. I was being serious.
I know, that's why it was funny.
Thinks it's funny that I'm being serious.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You